All right, grab your Bibles with me. Let's dive in, and we will pick up our conversation around Ephesians. Quick context will be helpful. As you might know, this is a remarkable letter written by a man in prison, but it's a letter devoid of any grumpiness. It's a letter devoid of any anguish or anger or resentment or bitterness or woe is me, I'm a victim. Why? Can you believe it? I've served Jesus so well and now I'm in prison. It's actually very difficult to find out that he is in prison by his writings, other than he says twice, I am in prison for your sake, I'm in prison for the sake of the Gentiles. It's an amazing letter, written probably to a number of churches, but it is a letter full of affection, a fatherly heart, a deep and incredible love. And so we're getting to the climax of the book, sadly. I'd love to have started this book in this space because it's so worth scrumming down and taking our time and walking our way through it. But if you'll go with me, the words will be on the screen over my shoulder if you don't have a Bible with you. But it is the 6th chapter. Andrew did such a good job on parenting 2 weeks back. And here we go. There it is over my shoulder. Finally be strong in the Lord and in the strength of his might. Immediately we know that he has drifted now from a parental relational heart. He's now stepping into the world of combat, a military mode and language. Put on the whole armor of God that you may be able to stand against the schemes of the devil. Oh, rich language. For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood. Now there's a shift of metaphor. You pick that up? Up until that point in time, he goes back there. It's military. Now he goes to the Olympics. He goes to wrestle. I'll explain if I can. We do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers of this present darkness, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places. I'm tired just reading all that. Therefore, because of all of this, take up the whole armor of God, he says it a second time, that you may be, now notice, 3 times he uses this word or similar words, that you may be able to withstand in the evil day. Having done it all, to stand firm. Stand therefore, do you get it? Stand therefore, having fastened on the belt or the loin of truth, having put on the breastplate of righteousness, and as shoes for your feet, having put on the readiness given by the gospel of peace. In all circumstances, take up the shield of faith, with which you can extinguish all the flaming darts of the evil one, and take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God. Oh, my word, what an incredible passage that demands the utmost attention. Now, what is foreign to us is the nature of dark forces. We live, as I said, in the most celebrated, certainly Southern California, some of the most celebrated moments of prosperity and republic politics. And I think it's incredible that in the midst of all of this, behind there are cosmic forces at work, forces of darkness, forces of evil, personal forces set out to our demise. That is so foreign to all of your thinking, I'm pretty sure. Let me show you a picture. This is a picture of Irma Grieser. She looks gorgeous, doesn't she? Anyone know who she was? She was hanged at the age of 22, the youngest ever to be hanged by a woman to be hanged by a British tribunal. Well, what was the year and what was the significance? She grew up in a very average German home in a rural village. Her father was a farmer. He had an affair, unfortunately, and her mother could not cope with her father's affair, and so she committed suicide. Her father remarried, had 4 kids. For all intents and purposes, still, that happens. It's tragic, it's unpleasant, but it happens. That is not particularly peculiar to the story. She left school early to try to get work because her father now had 4 kids with a widow. So with her brothers and sisters and the 4 kids, there were many mouths to feed. So she got a number of different jobs, tried to become a nurse. They said she was ill-qualified, and at 17, they asked her to come back later. The story goes, and I won't go too deeply into it, but our story picks up when she became a prison guard at Auschwitz. That's right, the Auschwitz of the Holocaust. The Auschwitz that called her the hyena. Because at the tender age of 20, 21, 22, she developed a sadism, a brutality, a violence that is hard to explain in natural psychology. Surely your upbringing was not that traumatic because that she would do what she did. She walked around with a whip in one hand, a revolver in the other, with a dog that was violent. She would kick people to death. She would whip them to death. She would randomly shoot people to death. She would turn her dog on them to kill them for no apparent reason. Witnesses testify. When other guards were given 10 years sentence, she was without a moment's hesitation sent to hang at 22, looking like a film star. She showed no remorse for her actions, asked for no clemency, mercy. Even the morning of her execution, the only word she uttered, apparently from a number of witnesses, was schnell, quickly. Kill me quickly. You see, this was not a natural progression of psychological misfunction. This was a woman who got affected by some other force. Psychologists are trying to understand. This was a woman who got stuck and stung by a demonic evil, an evil that the world is still trying to cope with 100 years later, almost 100 years later. She was so evil and so sadistic that they hanged her. From the top down, the Nazi system was evil. Look at Nuremberg. If you see the latest Russell Crowe movie, you can see evil at play. Now, I'm saying all of this because I want to make the point. This is not a cute little song. This is not, I'm too young to march in the infantry. Slide, please. Cute, isn't it? I mean, it's completely wrong because the design is medieval. The design was not even timely and accurate to the time in which Paul wrote, and we'll see that slide in a moment. Now, that was more of what he was speaking about, because that was their daily encounter. Daily, they saw soldiers just like that. They saw a breastplate without a back piece. They saw a shield that was about the 2/3 length of the soldier. They saw a helmet. They saw the shins covered. Because when the enemy came at them, oftentimes the barbarians, they would crouch into a tortoise position, the shields in front of them and over them, keeping the fiery darts of the enemy away from them. The stabbings of the spears and the thrusts of the swords at their legs, they were protected and became the dominant force for 1,000 years. That's exactly what Paul had in mind. This is not a cute verse that we sing at Sunday school. This was a most brutal and dastardly personal evil set and designed for our death and destruction. You know that passage, don't you? In John 10, where it says, the thief comes to rob, to kill, and to destroy. So Paul, writing from prison, does not beg for mercy himself. He's saying, please, finally, the crescendo of my writing, the ultimate moment in my orchestra conduction is you have to understand this passage. We are at war. And when we slowly unpack, are you with me? When we slowly unpack it and we walk our way through the text, look and see what happens. Finally, be strong in the Lord and in the strength of His might. I love the way Eugene Peterson of the Message writes this. God is strong, and He wants you strong. So take everything the Master has set out for you, well-made weapons of the best materials, and put them to use so that you will be able to stand up to everything the devil throws at you. This is no weekend war that we'll walk away from and forget about in a couple of hours. At 6:30, you don't forget about this. Finally, most importantly, the crescendo of my argument is that you can't walk away in 2 hours and say, well, thank goodness that's behind me. Now I'll get back to the real world. Meryl and I were cleaning up today, and and I said, we were talking on our walk this morning about how we've grown to learn about our imperfections. And I said, when we get to heaven one day, it'll be so amazing for me to meet me. Like the way God intended me to be. And you. Oh, you are Meryl. Ah, that's the way you're meant to be? It's kind of fascinating. Thank you. It's a little late that I'm the perfect me now. I'd like to have been the perfect me then. He says, this is no weekend war that we will walk away from or forget about in a couple of hours. This is for keeps. A life and death fight to the finish against the devil and his angels. Ladies and gentlemen, this is of a most important priority in our spiritual lives. That we don't allow ourselves to be lulled by our secularism and our modernity and all the things that just place darkness. And that's why I used Irma Grieser. Meryl said to me, why are you using it? Because I wanted a pretty blonde woman who grew up in a fairly average home, who became a dastardly, brutal, killing machine. She was so dangerous they hung her. We're no different from her, lest we think we are. The moment you open the door, her sister Helena says in her test in the trial, said, my sister, she said, whenever there was conflict, used to run away. She hated conflict. She avoided it at all costs. She wasn't the playground bully. She wasn't the one who walked around slapping everyone. The moment there was conflict, she dashed. So what happened from that girl to that woman? Surely, it's the fact that there is a supernatural personal evil that is at work and got her. She opened the door slightly, and then more, and he came in at a gallop. C.S. Lewis, in his Screwtape Letters, Dana quoted this a few months ago, says, there are two equal and opposite errors into which our race could fall about the devils. You remember C.S. Lewis, the English professor? One is to disbelief in their existence. The other is to believe, but to feel an excessive and an unhealthy interest in them. Now, Paul does not say here, in your own strength. He says, be strong in the Lord and in the strength of his might. Clinton Arnold, the theologian, says to be strong in this passage is a passive voice. It means that we are receiving strength from the outside. Now, these are all important for where we'll get to, and hopefully I can get there quickly. I'll say it again. He is stressing the idea of receiving strength from an outside source. We are not capable. We are not capable of being able to stand against the enemy in our own strength. That's okay. We just got two babies crying. That happens. Exactly. Believers need God's empowerment because they will face a variety of, listen. They will face a variety of well-planned attacks by a supernatural opponent. Clinton Arnold again. This is for real, my dear friends. I say it with no fear in my heart. All that I think Paul is trying to get us to see is this is legitimate. It's supernatural, it's personal, and it's evil. And he has got a target on our back, and we have to understand that target. Paul writes it this way, in order that Satan might not outwit us, for we are not unaware of his schemes. It's such a good thing to journal when you feel like you're under attack. And then go back and read it. I think without genius, but a splash of discernment, you will actually see how the enemy comes against you over and over and over again. With a smile on my face, couples, you don't have an intense conversation after 10 o'clock at night. Guaranteed war. Guaranteed fightville. Guaranteed gloves off, you come out swinging, and then you go to bed so unhappy, and the enemy says, yes! Yes! And next Thursday night at 10:30, we have the same, and I don't know why these things keep happening. Yes, you do. Stop talking at 10 o'clock. Read a book and go to bed. It's over. The enemy has schemes. He has divine strategies and tactics to ensnare you and me. And it's so important for us to understand that there is an excessive external strength that God empowers me with, as we will see, that allows us to fight the enemy. Secondly, verse 12. For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the rulers and against authorities and against the cosmic powers over this present. This sounds like a Game of Thrones or Lord of the Rings kind of thing, extraction. Against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places. I've researched that from a number of different theologians, and no one really knows, is my understanding. There's lots of speculation. Paul doesn't seem bothered to explain that more. It just seems like there's 4 layers of demonic activity, 4 layers of authority, 4 layers of demonic bombardment against us. Derek Prince, the British theologian, says it this way: against the rulers with various areas and descending orders of authority, against the world, dominators of this present age. So in other words, we don't really know. And I think that's okay. But what Paul does here, that's fascinating for me, is he moves from a military metaphor to a wrestling metaphor. And I wondered why. Why does he go from this kind of big combat conversation to one-on-one? And I wonder, and I can't say definitively, I wonder if he isn't saying, look, my dear brothers and sisters, because they all knew that. It's like soccer's on the go right now. You know what's happening. So when he says you're wrestling against flesh and blood, they know. These men greased themselves. Sometimes they were naked. Sometimes they had a loincloth, and they would fight it out until there was one person standing. They understood this metaphor. And he says, listen, you have to fight this out until you win. There's no shortcut here. You can't just, oh, well, whatever. No, there's no whatever here. There are winners and losers, and you've got to come out as the victor. Remember in chapter 2, he speaks of the world, the flesh, and the devil. The 3 tactics used most often against us. John Mark did a whole book on the world, the flesh, and the devil. It's worth reading. All right, moving on quickly. You with me still? Okay. Verse 13. Therefore, because of everything I've told you, be strong in the Lord, the strength of His might. Take up the whole armor of God. We'll get to the armor in the next point. That you may be able to withstand the evil day, and having done all to stand, and stand therefore. You know, I was thinking about this because it now leans into my love for military history. 2 examples came to mind. One historical, one in the light of our nation. We're all acquainted with Henry V as per Shakespeare's writings. And remember that great moment where Kenneth Brannigan, acting as Henry V, walks up and down amongst the Brits. They are by far in the minority. They are by far under-weaponed. They are by far the defeated foe. They are fighting in France, became known as the Battle of Agincourt. And they look at the French, who have lined up, I think, something like 4 or 5 times their size, greater military equipment, horseback, knights, soldiers, I mean, just completely. And he walks up and down. In the words of Shakespeare, he says this. I'll read it slowly so you can kind of get it. We few. We happy few. We band of brothers. For he today that sheds his blood with me. There's no argument here. Some of us are going to die. Shall be my brother. But he ne'er so vile this day shall gentle his condition. And gentlemen in England now abed. In other words, those who didn't come and fight with us, who are sleeping with their lovers right now, shall think themselves accursed. They were not here. And hold their manhoods cheap, whiles any speak that fought with us upon St. Crispin's day. In other words, the guys who aren't here are going to say, man, I wish I would have done anything to fight the Battle of Agincourt with you. This is a moment where Henry says we've got to hold. No matter how many they look like, no matter how equipped and no matter, what we have to do is hold, stand, and having done all, to stand. I get moved by those speeches, man. War of Independence. The Battle of a Cow Pen, South Carolina, January the 17th, 1781. Who knows that battle? Oh, my Lord. I knew I should have taught history in the schools here. Quickly. The troops, the American troops are getting beaten on every side. The British forces are professional, they're well armed, well trained, well drilled, well executed, and are far more in number than the locals. And a Brigadier General, Daniel Morgan. Now forgive me, but these things matter to me, so you can be gracious towards me. They're running from the Brits having been beaten, and he makes a call. He lines up his troops with the river behind them so there's no escape. The British are chasing them en masse, thousands of them, under a Colonel Banastre Tartleton. And he puts his troops with the river behind them, and then he does something profound. The night before the battle, it seems like he didn't sleep much. He walked around from campfire to campfire and took the soldiers in hands, face in hands, and spoke to every one of them, explaining exactly what he wanted from them the next day. Fire to fire, man to man. And there were three groups: the skirmishers, the militia, and then the revolutionary Continental Army. And essentially what he did, the details aren't important, other than he got the skirmishers to line up first. The Brits came around the corner, saw a couple of lines of local troops, and thought, we got them. And the colonel said, attack. His troops were exhausted, but he said, attack. And General Morgan said, what I want from the skirmishers, I want you to shoot the officers on the horseback. That's all you are called to do. And when you run out of ammunition, turn as if you are running away. They shot the generals, the officers off the horseback, and they turned, and Colonel Tartleton was so empowered by that. He said, they're running, charge. They spun around, and behind them were the militia, and the militia had one command: shoot 2 shots. That's all. Make them count, and then you turn and hightail. Again, the cry came from the Brits, they're running, get them, as they've loaded their bayonets. And the militia skedaddled around the corner. And as the Brits came to the top, there were the Continental Army ready for them. And they shot them to pieces. At that point in time, William Washington, the nephew to General Washington, led the cavalry from the one side, and now the militia swung back and came from the other side. And it's studied at West Point today as arguably one of the greatest battles of American soldiers ever. Now, what's the point to my story? You will stand. We will be outnumbered, we will be outgunned, we will be overwhelmed. We've got the river behind us, there's no running back. No turning tail, we're holding. And they won an incredible victory. Now, where does all of this point? It points to the armor of God. What I've done is I've got a table which will appear for you, and initially it will look overwhelming because I'm not clever enough to break it down. But I want to talk to you about this. What we tend to do is look at the armor of God, the belt of truth, the breastplate of righteousness, the shoes, and we'll go on to the others, as if they are isolated moments that are cute. You talk about them at Sunday school. But actually, I wondered, if we go back to Genesis 3, is there any connection between the armor and what Satan did in Genesis 3? Because Paul is saying you are facing something and you better know what you're facing. And then I asked this question: what has the gospel done to take from me what the enemy stole in Genesis chapter 3? Let's go through it. Are you with me? You following? Okay. So the belt of truth, interesting, cute. Show the picture, the belt, put the belt on, sing our songs, you know. But what if it actually was addressing, thanks. I'm too young to. So is it possibly that the belt of truth was actually addressing doubt? That did God really say? Isn't that where Satan got it right? Isn't that where Satan got it right with you? Isn't that where Satan has got it right, where we think, well, I don't know, I'm doubting. And Paul says, if you are doubting, you must understand, put that belt of truth on. Gird yourself with it. Because doubt is never the friend in this context of the believer. Because I can say, I have been justified. The gospel, as per justification, is a legal exchange. The language there of justification comes from the courts of Rome. It means that someone has exchanged their condition or state with my own. And Jesus took my brokenness upon himself. He took my sin and transgressions upon himself. And so when Paul is saying, put on the belt of truth, he's not singing a cutesy song. He is saying the target the enemy uses against you is doubt. And the way we gain ascendancy over doubt is by saying, I have been justified. That is legal. Imagine I committed a most heinous crime. You can use Irma Creaser if you want to. And I'm in the courts and the judge is about to sentence me. And just before he sentences me, someone stands up and says, excuse me. I'd like to pay for Chris's transgression. I will do 10 years in prison for him. Now, not only will there be disbelief on my part and amazement, but also there'll be that sense of it's paid in full. It's a legal document. It's a contract. I can't come back next week and, oh, Judge, I'm so sorry. I really would like to go to prison. Can I just be found guilty again and again and again and again? And Jesus says, but I have paid it in full. There is no doubt to that because it's a legal document. It's not an emotional position. Oh, I feel saved. I don't feel saved. I believe. I'm not sure if I believe. It's a legal document, and the belt of truth deals with the enemy's doubt in my mind, and I can say with confidence, I have been justified. Number 2, the breastplate of righteousness. What do we know from the garden? That Adam and Eve were naked and unashamed. As soon as they sinned, we know that shame crept in for the first time. Anyone not experienced shame over the last few weeks? Okay. So now what does the breastplate of righteousness mean? It means I have been forgiven. My heart has been taken care of. I don't walk around round shoulders, chest collapsed, feeling the shame of last night's sin, last week's sin, or the week before that. I've got the breastplate of righteousness. When the enemy comes and he fires his darts at me, I'm able to say, absolutely no, you've got no right of access because I have been forgiven. Isn't that magnificent? So when I put that on a daily basis, what I'm really saying is I'm reminding myself of the work the gospel has done in my life. It is fait accompli. It is done. Let's move quickly. Shoes of the gospel of peace. What has happened? I've been separated. Where are you, Adam? I've been hiding. So from that moment in time, our relationship with God has been estranged, hasn't it? You feel Him sometimes, you don't others. Well, what is the gospel? The gospel says, I've been reconciled. I've been reconciled. Meryl's a marriage and family therapist. Couple, I'm just creating a sort of vignette here. Couple get married, have 30 great years together, then separate and get divorced. 3 years later, under Meryl's watch, they decide we're going to reconcile. It's a fait accompli. You reconduct the ceremony, you sign the papers again. What am I trying to do here? The armor of God is not just a cute Sunday nursery rhyme. It is a position that we can hold to with faith and with confidence. I have been reconciled. I don't need to hide from God anymore. Let's quickly go through these three. The shield of faith. Remember the full body or 2/3 of the body? Remember when they went into battle, they crouched the front guys and they closed off front access and the others held the shield above them. The shield of faith. What did Adam say? I was afraid. Fear crept in. First time, Genesis 3. Anxiety, fear, depression. Oh my word, is that a great instrument in the hand of the enemy? A target is put on your back, almost like a big D. All right, the demonic powers fly over. Oh, there's a D. Got another one. Depression, A, anxiety. Got another one. Over here, over here. Now that's not to shame you. That's to describe the tactic the enemy uses against you. So what does Paul say we can do? He says we can use the shield of faith. And what do we say? I am a son of the Most High God. I am a daughter of the Most High God. With boldness, with confidence, with courage, I am a son. I wake up every morning and I speak to my Heavenly Father as a son, or Meryl as a daughter, said, this is who I am. He's my Heavenly Father. I have no more fear. Now that doesn't mean I don't have moments. You hear what I'm saying? I'm not being silly here. But it draws me back into that place where I hold my shield up and I allow myself to drift again. It's so fun having grandkids. I mean, it just is. And my eldest, as you know, is 19 or whatever, and we got little Magnus. And it doesn't matter what Dana or Stu have done, Magnus runs to them. They could have been rude to him or irritated or whatever, if that's possible with Magnus, I don't know. But they just run. No matter what Stu is doing, he will stop. Magnus knows he will stop because I'm his boy. That's that. Satan, you're trying to blow me out. You're trying to overwhelm me with fear and anxiety. My shield is up because I'm my Father's boy. He's got me. I was telling our new elders at a meeting the other day. There was a time, we've had some fun stories in our 8 years together. But when Dana and Maddie were part-time with us, we didn't have much money. We generally don't have a lot of money. And I remember Dana and I looked at each other and said, there's not enough money for salaries this month. But God has always been good. So I'll tell you what we do. I'm a tither. You might not be. I wish you were. And we just looked at each other and said, but if we both tithe before we paid, we can be paid. I know it's a crazy thought. So we both tithe, and then we could get paid. Some of you think, I don't understand. Of course you don't understand it because you don't tithe. When you tithe, you completely understand it. You just see the handiwork of God over and over again. And we chuckle about it now because we went through that phase and we see God's blessing and we're able to still keep going as a church. I mean, it's a beautiful thing. Here's that point. The shield of faith, I was afraid. Fear and anxiety gripped my soul. But man, I'm a son and a daughter of the Most. You try that next time you have an anxious moment because we all have them. We all have them. No, hang on a second, Satan. I'm a son, a daughter of the Most High God, man. I'm standing. My back is to the river. I'm facing the enemy straight on. I may have 2 bullets in my weapon. I'm going to make them count because I'm a son, a daughter of the Most High. Number 5, or whatever it is. The helmet of salvation. Blame the woman made me do it. I said that in the early years of marriage. I'd lose my temper. Meryl, if you didn't do that, I would never get angry. You look at Adam and you say, how could you say that? You're such a coward. I said it. If you didn't say that or do that, I wouldn't have gotten angry. See how crazy the enemy works? It's a tactic that still works. If you weren't rude to me, I wouldn't have been edgy back. If you didn't, I wouldn't have. No. And he says, no, hang on a second. The helmet of salvation. I'm a sinner. I am a sinner. And I need God's grace in my life. Yes, Meryl may have been grumpy or whatever. But actually, I'm a sinner. I've got to get before Him. And I say, this wife you've given me, oh my word. No, I'm a sinner. And I need to be saved by grace. Lastly, the sword of the Spirit. What did the enemy do? Well, Adam said, the serpent deceived me. What is that? The use of deception. What does the gospel do? The gospel is the power of sin is broken over my life. That doesn't mean I'll never sin again, but the power of sin is broken over my life. Now, what is my point here? And we're coming into land. When I sat down 2 weeks ago, I realized I was going to be preaching on this. I went through this, every commentary I had, I studied, and I thought, I feel dissatisfied. there must be something else in the text here. And I might not have got it 100% correct, but I do wonder if somehow in all of this, there is a way in which God can use this to identify what the enemy uses against you and then make sense of this. When I put that breastpiece of righteousness on, when I feel the enemy, and he does, he will sit on my shoulder and feed my mind with lust. Of course he will. I'm a man. He's going to test like a shadow boxer. I'm going to see where my gap comes. Now, what do I do in that moment? Do I submit and surrender to it? Or do I put the breastplate of praises righteousness on and say, no. I'm a son of the Most High. This is worth considering. This is worth mulling over and meditating on, and help you and me to find the little trigger target things that the enemy uses against us. We're going to come to the table now. Satan and the demons are real, personal beings of evil. Spiritual warfare is a reality for Christians. Christ has already won the decisive battle. He's victorious through death and resurrection. And believers are called to stand firm in God's strength rather than their own. If you stand firm in your white-knuckle strength, you will be exhausted, depleted, and want to give up. But when you position yourself in God, in Christ, and armor yourself up like this, I wonder if that warfare is not going to be a little easier.
Thank you for listening to the Genesis Costa Mesa podcast. To find more information about our community, feel free to visit our website, www.genesiscostamesa.com, or find us on social media @Genesis Costa Mesa.